I'll tell you a story of the scariest thing that ever happened to me. I was living alone in a ranch-style house, so the main living area and my bedroom were all on one floor, and in the main hallway there was a door that went down to the basement. But I mostly used the basement for storage and nothing else, and spent most of my time on the main floor. One night, I crawl into bed around 11 p.m. and fall asleep. I wake up feeling kind of out of it, and my room is pitch black. I grab my phone and realize I've only been asleep for about an hour. I'm usually a pretty heavy sleeper, so it was weird that I woke up randomly in the night. I'm laying in bed, trying to fall asleep, and that's when I hear thump, 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 coming from downstairs. My heart begins to pound, and my thoughts started to race. It sounded like something heavy was moving in the basement. What I didn't mention is that there is no outside entrance to the basement. The door in the hallway is the only way in or out of the basement. This door is right outside my bedroom. I'm frozen with fear in bed. I'm quiet, waiting, hoping I don't hear anything, at the same time trying to figure out if I should run or stay quiet, when I hear it again. Thump, thump, thump. It sounds like it's moving closer. Thump, thump, thump. It sounds like it's near the stairs. Fear and adrenaline are running through my body. I get up and grab my handgun. I slowly move towards the hallway. I hit the hallway light, and I'm just staring at the basement door. I'm too afraid to open it. I grabbed my keys and left my house. I felt scared, but also embarrassed that I was running away from my own house in the middle of the night, from a literal bump in the night. I slept in my car in a Walmart parking lot, and in the morning I went back to my house, feeling braver in the daylight. I did a sweep of the first floor, closets, bathroom, found no one and nothing odd. I noticed the basement door was still closed. I slowly opened it and turned on the light, leading down to the basement. I slowly made my way down. I looked everywhere and did not find anything, and nothing I had stored down there was out of place. Nothing fell over to make the noise. It still freaks me out. I never heard it again, but I did put a lock on the basement door, just so I could sleep better at night. I was trying to sleep in my room back when I was younger and lived with my folks. I must have been maybe 17 or 18. I opened my eyes while rolling over to get comfortable, and I see a black figure just outside my door, who I thought was my stepfather in the dark. Their hands were up by their chest, making these strange finger motions, almost like you would do sarcastically after a scary story, or a witch might do when casting a spell, just moving fingers wildly in my direction. I should note that the figure had no defined shape. It looked like squiggles that moved in a vague shape, and I chalked it up to a lack of light and my stepfather. Well, I looked the other way. "What the hell are you doing?" thinking it was a really stupid, creepy thing to do at night. Well, in that moment, it vanished, just gone. It was at that moment my heart sank, and I became petrified with fear. One of the few moments I was scared out of my mind, and couldn't comprehend what I just saw. I was working at a summer camp, taking kids out on canoe trips for a few days at a time at national parks. One night after setting up our campsite and quenching the fire, I was doing the last check of the campsite, making sure everything was okay. I looked out at the lake and saw this lone man paddling a canoe. I thought it was pretty strange, but it's not out of the ordinary. The only weird thing being that he was alone. He waved, so being the polite Canadian I am, I waved back. Went to bed in the staff tent, and everything was normal. That night, I had a bit of trouble sleeping, so I decided to go stargazing, as that usually calms me down. I exit the tent and see this man creeping through our campsite, looking in tarps and bags. I don't know what he was looking for. Maybe drugs or food, but that's not important. This strange man was creeping through the campsite near the campers that I was responsible for. I made eye contact with him, and he stands up straight. He is tall as hell, and I'm quite short, so I quickly grab the first thing I can think of, a can of bear mace. This stuff is meant to stop a charging bear, so I hold it at the ready and tell him, "Get the f*** out of my campsite." We don't really speak, and he just looks at me, tilts his head down, and says, "Oh, I didn't see you guys here," and turns around and starts making his way back towards the lake. As he's leaving, I immediately wake up the other staff, and we make sure he leaves. We use our sat phone to call the park rangers and give a description of the guy's characteristics and where we saw him last. The rangers come down and say they see no sign of anyone. Without a doubt, that was the scariest moment I had on the job. I've learned not to fear animals for the most part, as they're predictable and not usually out to hurt humans. In my experience, the scariest and most dangerous thing to encounter out in the wilderness is a person. The first night in my first apartment, I didn't have a bed, so I slept on the couch in the living room. I had a nightmare that someone with a knife was going down the hallway. Just as they got to the living room door, I woke up. I jumped in my car and spent one more night at my parents'. 2 months later, my roommate falls asleep on the same couch. Next morning, he tells me about a dream he had about a guy coming down the hall with a knife, and just as he got to the door, my roommate woke up. A few months later, a friend asks if they can crash on my couch for the night. Sure, you can sleep on my couch. The next morning, he says he had a weird dream. I said, "Guy coming down the hall with a knife?" My roommate pops in and says, "You woke up just as he got to the door?" The dude went the palest shade of white I've ever seen.